I want to keep the cameras rolling for the dust to clear.
Oh yeah, we won't be allowed in there until the air clears, so they'll be rolling out.
So they'll roll out. Okay, great.
There's a difference between going like, wow, that's a really cool visual effect, versus just enjoying the movie and going, wow, and that's it, just wow.
All right, here we go, gang.
I'm a big fan of practical, that's what I do. I like to build things, but Len is a very, very big fan of working practical. And he had the team to do it.
Move back, go back all the way to the end of the house.
I come from a miniature background, and I like to see things done practically, if at all possible. I'd like to take advantage of our special effects guys.
Some of the challenges were this helicopter explosion and a lot of bullet hits, and we have a big scene at the 105 freeway with a Harrier shooting up cement columns and collapsing freeway bridges and cars flipping out of the way from missiles.
And Mike Menardis, which is an amazing special effect builder. Whenever the question came to us and saying, hey, should this be CG, should this be this? The guy said, well, we can build it. Why make it CG?
If you can shoot something practically, whether it's a model or you just do it practically on set, I think there's something that audiences just respond to.
However, there's still a huge load of work that's going to be done by visual effects to just tying all those scenes together, creating pieces where absolutely unbuildable, like a two-layer freeway. You've got work cuts for them, but rather than approaching everything in the CG kind of thing, we just decided to build many, many elements that could be used later on post to assemble and create the vision that Len wants, which is again very palpable, real.
The special effects do everything you can do on a set. Bullet hits, fire, building rigs to move jets and what have you. Visual effects, we do the stuff that you can't do in a set.
We do anything that's affected in post-production, that, you know, whether we add a computer-generated element,
Flying jets that don't exist, monsters and that sort of thing.
we generate the whole shot in the computer, or we just composite, marry together two live action elements. All that stuff happens after we shoot the movie, so thus it's a visual effect shot.
There's a big difference between CGI and just a standard comp, like when you have green screen.
Len's real savvy on how to do this stuff, and he likes the practical approach. And I think that's why we got along so well when we first talked. You want like a snapping cable that could come down later.
I don't know, you can go back and forth about it, but yeah, there are a lot of visual effects, but a lot of it is done kind of an old school way.
The director picks the shots, he says exactly what he wants to happen, and everybody from there has to figure out the best way to happen.
You know, first you're thinking, how are we going to do it? Is this us? Is this a CG helicopter, miniature?
So I usually get together with a special effects guy. We sort of talk it out. We bring the art department in.
See what everyone can bring to the table, and so you can find the best way to get the shot.
Work it all out, present this to the director, and if he likes it, then we go for it.
The tunnel was the first sequence that we started prepping when the movie started. And it came into its own, starting with the story, and then obviously once we got the story down, how the action would go. Brian Smurs, the second unit director, had a huge influence on the way everything went as well. We just started with breaking down the scene. We got a previs of what was going on, which is a three-dimensional cartoon of the action. And we broke it down. We saw where Len intended for the cameras to be, and we figured out how we were going to do each shot, whether it was a stunt shot or a special effects shot, or if it had to be a CG shot. There's some comps. There's some CG comps, for instance, when McClane and Matt are in the tunnel and the car comes flipping 100 feet over and is about to land on them, and the two other cars come in, which actually happened, by the way.
Mike Menardis, who was our special effects coordinator, did an insane job on it, and it's really difficult to time that out and have the other cars come in and hit at the right time, but it's all real.
They had to comp Matt and McClane in there, just because obviously that's something that is completely too dangerous to actually do. If something was completely CG, I think the audience would know.
I think it's much more complicated to work out big stunts and everything practically.
We have a car on a tow cable with two nitrogen ratchets underneath. They're big hydraulic cylinders that we rig with nitrogen. We put about 2,400 pounds of nitrogen in each one, and then it pulls the cables at about 80,000 pounds of tension. We have a couple pans in the engine compartment that we're going to fill with rubber cement and light that on fire after cameras are rolling. We have the two cables that are attached to our two ratchets underneath the ramp. Then we have some valves here that are electrical actuated. And when we push the button, it's going to fire the cylinder right here, which will open up this valve, which will let the piston fire back. And we have two of them, one on each side. You guys Len here in here?
I'll go find him.
Let's go find him and talk to him about this, because that's Foreman Anthony Simonitis. He puts it all together on his computer, and once we get all the numbers, and we take it to our test site and do it once or twice, and we get it pretty accurate within a couple of feet. Our biggest reason for testing, especially like a gag like this, we test all our gags, but this one is because we have one helicopter. So we only really have one chance to do this shot. When we load it, we're going to put a propane popper in the back with some MAP gas for some orange color and smoke. Then we're going to put a gas bomb in the front. We have some like baggy sausages full of wet sand to kick the doors off.
It is what it is. We launched a police car into the helicopter.
On impact, we'll cut the cables and drop the helicopter.
The only thing we added was the blades. You know, we suspended the helicopter from a crane.
Because the wires are holding the helicopter up, we can't have the real rotors on there, so we'll add computer-generated rotors and animate those later.
Within the shot is also a guy jumping out of the helicopter. We're obviously not going to do that in the same shot. It will be a visual effects comp to overlay that to make it look like it's one and the same.
The goal is always photoreality, so one of the big keys is relying on the DP to match lighting. Then when we marry it together, they'll look like they're photographed together. And I mean, of course, we have lots of tricks we can do to help them out, but at the end of the day, if the lighting isn't matching, people may not know what's looking wrong in the shot, but they'll pick up that something is phony.
I will always try to do it practically first until it's completely impractical.
Second unit director, Brian Smers and Len Wiseman, our first unit obviously director, came up with a sequence. They said, how should we do this?
And I'll exhaust it too with my production team. I say, okay, we've got this Harrier sequence, and I break out my plans I've been drawing. I go, okay, so here's how we're gonna do the sequence. We're gonna build a jet, put it on a flatbed truck, and we'll drive this jet through downtown. And that's always where my approach will start, is how do I put this thing on camera practically? And then we'll talk through the realities of it, and sometimes, a lot of that stays, and it did.
It's going to be on a huge, what's called a motion base. It's a big hydraulic rig that can move this 50-foot long jet around in front of another blue screen outside, in natural sunlight. Bruce Willis will be on top of that, so it'll look like he's hanging on for dear life on this jet as it sort of spirals.
We had a model jet that was like a half-scale model that we shot on green screen, and then we incorporated it into the live plates. That is a visual effect, but it's not CG.
The miniature is a tried and true method of doing it. It's going to be a 9-foot-long model. Shot motion control, sort of a standard way we've done it. Compositing, putting the two elements together is so much better these days digitally. We'll add heat distortion because the jet's hovering. We'll add glints and the little radio-controlled guy and pilot inside moving around, and then that will cut with the full-size mock-up the art department has built.
And then other times there's just certain things that you go to CG on.
We won't have the opportunity to really have a jet out here because there's really one or two prototypes. The concern again is photoreality, and this thing swoops right in front of the camera. It's doing so much stuff, we don't want to just solely rely on the computer-generated model.
So it's sort of a nice mix of everything. I'm using all the tools that we have at our disposal these days.
Talk about the highway set. The highway was never quite meant to be done and built. We were supposed to shoot material out of the 105 freeway close to the airport. We did shoot material there.
It's a big controversy of letting us shoot there because, it goes to the airport, a lot of business, but, we got it.
And then there's this big finale scene between the jet and the truck. We realized quickly that we needed to control the space to blow it up. So what was the option? It's basically build a section of that.
It's very hard to control a live freeway. Behind me is a huge blue screen, and what I'm going to do is create an entire 3D environment of the East Coast area that we're shooting in. And we also have multiple levels of freeway above us, freeway going out.
The section that we're blowing is built out of expanded polystyrene foam, styrofoam type material, coated with plaster to look like cement. We've loaded it with trapezoid-shaped mortars There's about 30 mortars in there full of sand and black powder lifters that are going to blow the sand up into the fracturing foam as the truck drives by, and it's going to look like the cement deck of the freeway is exploding.
The area to the other side there is actually solid, so the truck can drive on it.
Yeah, good job, everybody.
Matt's apartment had some of the similar concepts. We used cannons to push the debris that is cut with the det cord. And the det cord in this instance and in Matt's apartment is in thin plastic tubes full of sand. And the sand picks up the energy of the cord and pushes it, and we get more dispersion, and it gives a better look, and it doesn't look so sourcey this way.
The great thing about it is the concept of the freeway is the idea of a big circular thing that happens on 2 levels. So if you do create a section of that, you can play it for every level.
And because we're physically going to blow up a chunk of the freeway, we're going to do that first. We go away for a few days, the art department patches it all up, then we come by and shoot the rest of the sequence.
But the freeway raising differently through the levels, we had to create columns on the side that look like it can be adjusted to change the angle.
And we'll just Dutch the camera later. We'll Dutch the angle so the columns look like they're straight, so it'll look like we're going up a steeper angle. I'm establishing sort of the horizon back there, so it's sort of typical movie cheap. And again, that stuff is better shot live. That's the best way to do it. It's better than a miniature. It's better than doing it digitally. If you can do it live, full size, it's always going to look better.
So the Capitol explosion is another one, another big miniature gag. We did a 24th scale miniature.
To me, that's the best way to do it, is to shoot it outside and in real sunlight, because it always looks best to do it that way.
In terms of the CG and the way Len uses CG, I really love the way he implements that. He will use CG in a way that maybe your eye won't necessarily catch it. Things to accent the action rather than to be the action.